Okay, so welcome to the Node.js Technical Steering Committee meeting for January 14th, 2021. We'll follow the agenda as tagged in the issue within the repo, which is number 963, in case anybody wants to look that up. Before we get started, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share?
There's a release coming out today, hopefully. 15.6, right?
Sounds good. Anything else?
Shout out to Daniel Adams for doing the release.
Thank you very much. I guess moving on to the next section, which is CPC and board meeting updates. The one thing I think is worth mentioning is that the CPC director election is open. There's two positions. The one that's currently open is the representative for the CPC itself. So it's only open to members of the CPC to run and will be voted on by the voting members. But if you have feedback or, want to talk to somebody to self-nominate or any of that stuff, that's running this month. And, so talk to your CPC rep, which is Mary from the TSC and Joe from the community committee, if you want to, provide your input, feedback on that front. Any questions or things on CPC board meeting that people have before we move on to the next section? No? Okay. So let's move on to the issues that were tagged for the agenda. So the first two are nominating Malad as a collaborator and nominating Zhu Meng as a collaborator. Those are two which are on the agenda just as per our process. I'm doing the onboarding for Malad later today. And Therese, I think you volunteered to do the onboarding for Zhu, right? Adrish maybe he's on mute but anyway,
that's right. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yep, we can hear you. Thanks.
And I'm doing an onboarding for Ian Su tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm happy to onboard Zhu Meng, but unfortunately, I don't see he confirming his acceptance. Just wondering.
I can follow up with him as well to just make sure that he's interested since I nominated him.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so the next issue on the agenda is HTTP replace destroy soon with socket end. This is number 36205. I'm just going to look to see who tagged it for the agenda. I see, Rich, you added it, so maybe you can give us just some context what the question is, if that's makes sense.
Let me pull it up because I'm just getting oriented here.
Sure. I can paste it in the chat if that helps.
Yeah, that does help. Thank you.
Okay.
I think Matteo actually might be the person who has followed this the most closely, but I don't know if he's getting oriented just like me.
I have, so let me give you the, so the key part here will be inviting, the next step probably will invite, so this thing has stalled completely, in fairness. There is essentially two different set of opinions between various actors about how we should implement support, like how a TCP RST packet should be implemented inside HTTP and inside TLS. Now, this goes down to very, very tiny print details on the HTTP and TCP RFCs. And to be honest, both arguments seems convincing. So I'm not, to be honest, I'm not in any position to call a shot, essentially, or to express an opinion. I would I would argue that if you're not if you have not studied those that have seen extreme deep detail, you will be able to gather the point. So essentially, we might ask to invite them or to present, to ask the TSC a proper question. I don't know how to unstuck it. I think that what we have there is probably not correct. That's my point of view. How to get it done, how to get it fixed, I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, I've been following this one as well. I'm not sure what the path forward is because I don't think we have particularly good tests for spec compliance right now. So making any progress on this seems highly problematic to me without somebody committing to actually make this whole spec compliance thing work and then trying to make this change. I mean, what's there, I don't think is necessarily correct, but even if it was correct, I think it's really hard to tell what the implications are more broadly, given how all of our tests are formulated and also given the sort of adoption in the ecosystem.
Nikita has his hand up.
Would those tests help? You mentioned that there are not enough tests for that now for the spec compliance. Would testing for the spec compliance help to resolve this pull request or not?
If I understand your question correctly, I mean, it would help if we added tests for spec compliance, but we'd have to basically write a whole new suite of tests. Like our tests are basically all kind of,
I guess, but
functional in nature.
But would having spec compliant tests help resolve the difference of opinions on this PR and approach?
I don't know. Maybe Matteo has an opinion. I mean, my take on this is there's like a few different concerns that are being raised, right? There's the TLS concern as well, which has slightly different implications. So it's not like one answer fits all.
Yeah, it's a very tricky business. It's not like it's definitely not, you know, easy, and not just about code. Okay, it's definitely not about code. What's being talked about. Okay, and it has very far-fetching implication on all of our users essentially. So it's to be honest, I even tried to ask questions around this, and I did not even get some cooperation between the various parties. So it is even, you know, there's even it's stuck with some hard ways. Like again, I asked questions. So I asked question and I checked, hey, what everybody else is doing. Like should not be the first ones that are facing this problem. And I, you know, because everybody has had to implement something like that in HTTP. So, and then the answer was they were not able to compile a list of that even. So I don't necessarily know how to unstack this, to be honest.
I guess the question I had from the question on the test was like, if we had a good spec compliance test suite, do we think it would potentially, you know, pass on one of these options but not pass on the other option, and that would give us a better understanding of which way to go? Or, and I guess that's one question. The other question is part of it sounds a little bit like part of the problem is like without that we're just uncomfortable doing anything, even if we clearly knew the answer, because it might have broader implications than just one test. Is that?
I'm sorry to interrupt. Mary's trying to join.
Yeah, I thought I just promoted her. Sorry, missed that. So I don't know. I was just asking that in the context of if we, you know, if that was a first step to say, but I guess, you know, that's a pretty big ask of people. Like if we tried, or we said like, you know, it's an effort to try and build up that test suite across the project and then come back to this to make the decision.
I don't think it fully resolves the issue because there's other implications, as Matteo said. I mean, security ones especially. I think the most realistic one is what Matteo already proposed, which is looking at alternatives in terms of like what everyone else is doing. I mean, that's a good starting point, but
from my point of view,
requires-
is check what Nginx, HA proxy, and Nginx and HA proxy do, and essentially copycat. So that's my, basic starting point there.
I agree. I think having some sort of a matrix of other implementations. Would be nice.
Exactly. So at this point, having a few folks debating on RFCs on a GitHub pull request, I'm sorry to minimize it, but it's a little bit up some non-substance. There's not enough substance here to make a call.
So I'm going to post a comment from that thread in the chat. I'm sorry, I need to get the name. I'm going to mispronounce this and I apologize, but Momchill apparently did, I don't know about everything, but at least on one of these issues, did take a look at what Apache and Nginx do. And I don't know if that helps move the needle at all, or if we need more than just that one observation about that one behavior in Nginx. But and Anatoly has the smoothest dog in and out maneuver I've seen.
This is a thing that happens, I think, like 100 times a day. So
I mean, that's, Rich, your suggestion sounds reasonable to me. Like if we post there saying, we want to see that like one of the proposals is matching the behavior of the other things, that would seem to be a way to help move it forward.
yeah, I think the only way to do this is to like make a matrix of what everyone does and the different scenarios and how they treat them, because that's the only way to really evaluate it. Like all of these comments are not very easy to understand from my perspective. Like I can't tell if this person actually went and tested all the behavior, or if they just looked at some code and they concluded that this is what it does.
All right, I'm going to type a comment right now that says, we talked about this at TSC. The information we think will help move this forward is what does Nginx do? What does HA proxy do? And
also what Apache does, like
what Apache, Nginx, and HA proxy do, and they can include other ones as well if they want to, but those three. And is there a reasonable? Should we even mention spec compliance testing? Like asking, is there a reasonable path to, or just leave that out?
I mean, we can leave that out. Yeah.
Maybe,
I mean, it still concerns me, but I think this is the first step anyway.
Okay, maybe I'll just mention it as an aside, but not as a request for any information or anything. Okay, and then I mean, we'll see what people say. We'll just go from there, and I'll just take it off the agenda for now. We're requesting some information. If people can provide the information, then we can take the issue up again. Certainly, one of us could go look for that information, but
it's a lot of work. Like just gathering that info, it's actually a lot of work.
Yeah.
Like
I would have to educate myself about certain things that I really don't want to do right now. I'd rather have somebody I trust just get the information. So yes,
exactly.
Okay. So I'll take care of that. I'll just post a comment. I'll remove from TSC agenda, and unless somebody else has something to say that hasn't been said, I think we can move on. I don't know if Beth or Colin or Girish or Gabriel have anything they want to say.
I'm yet to read through the issue, so I don't have an opinion at this point.
Okay, well, let's move on to the next issue then. The next one is, sorry, go ahead.
Mary did just show up, and I have a feeling that she probably was able to hear most of the conversation. I don't know if she has anything she wants to add to it before we move on, or if not.
Nothing to add.
Okay, so let's move on to the next one. TLS improve compliance with shutdown standard, remove hacks, number 36111. Let's see who added that one.
I hope not me. I have no recollection of that one.
Yeah, I see you did add it.
Did I add it?
Days
Was it
ago.
related to this one already?
It's basically comments, what does this need to move forward? A meeting with James. It may be related. It's
No, it's different. It's different. Yeah. Okay. So this is one I think that that we need James to talk about, because I think he's
okay.
His approval, or at least lack of objection, is what we're trying to accomplish, or else just close the darn thing or whatever. But so yeah, let's punt that one to next week, if that's okay with everyone.
I do
Sounds
have
good.
something to add on this one.
Wait. Go ahead, Colin.
So this one was opened by Jameson, who is one of the libuv maintainers, and he left a comment, because I'm currently working on a new libuv release. He left a comment saying that he's been holding off on merging a few pull requests, this is on the libuv side, until after this release, since it will break some flaky node.js tests. He says, I've given them the PR to fix their tests nearly 2 months ago, and then he links to the pull request that we're discussing now. So I'm inclined to put more pressure on that by adding those PRs to the next release of libuv after this one, and then link to 3 libuv pull requests. So yeah, we do need to get some type of resolution on this.
Okay. Would you be up for would you be up for follow? Is this the? Oh, never mind. I'm gonna say a complete sentence this time. Okay, so you link to it. Here it is, and yeah, maybe one of us should follow up with James about this. I'll take that on, unless you want to do it, Colin.
I'm okay with you doing it.
Okay, so I got the last one to do still, and I'll do this one next. Okay, thanks.
Just taking a quick release there. Okay, Rich, notes, so Rich will. Okay, sounds good. The next one, then we'll move on, unless anybody else have anything else they want to add to that one before we move on. If not, okay, let's move on to the next one, which is rename default branch from master to main or something similar. There was some questions about whether we should remove this because we haven't made any progress. I think there is something coming soon from GitHub. There's been some discussion about changes having been landed but not announced. But I saw somewhere else that, and sorry, I don't have the date, but like I thought it was within the next few weeks we were going to see something from GitHub that helps when you switch over to make it much more transparent in terms of PRs and stuff. So I'm thinking maybe we leave this on the agenda until we hear back from, either from Miles or maybe another week or two. Does that make sense to people? I don't hear any objections, so agenda for a few weeks. Okay, the next one is Docker Node.js Docker Node publish packages to GitHub registry. This is number 1410. And I will just look to see who added that to the agenda. So Matteo, you added this one to the agenda.
Yeah, it was apparently conflicting. So essentially there was some conflict in the fact that they asked for consensus to the TSC on adding another official channel for the Docker images. So they asked us to make a decision. From my point of view, it's not our choice to make a decision, but we were asked to. So
they make a recommendation though, right? Or no? Because I would ask them for their recommendation, and then we can decide.
The recommendation is there is not much recommendation here.
Can we ask them if they have a recommendation?
I think what, there was a recommendation. So that, one of the team members is saying, in addition to publishing to the official Docker Hub repo, we should publish to the GitHub repo, and with the rationale being that Docker is starting to rate limit. So in terms of a place you can, have a lot of downloads of Docker images, adding GitHub to GitHub repo makes sense. The blocking comment is, if we're going to make another sort of official place where people can get these Docker images, they'd like a, the TSC basically saying we'd want consensus from Node.js, TSC, and ComCom before saying this is an official channel, and also we'll need a PAT that allows publishing packages. I think from our perspective, it's less of a somebody's objecting and we need to rule between the two. It's more of like, do we have any concerns or objections? So I think if we chimed in as a TSC, we're fine with that. Then that's the question that's been posed to us. I mean, the other suggestion is, maybe it could be just treat the registry like on GitHub as a development build instead of other official channel, like the unofficial Alpine builds and stuff. To me, that seems like actually a pretty good first step. Other people have thoughts, views, concerns?
Just to clarify, this is not a proposal to store the container images in the GitHub itself as is. Instead, storing the images in the GitHub hosted container registry. Is that correct?
I think so, yeah. Like the title is like, there's more details in migrating to GitHub container registry for Docker images. So I think it's basically storing them in the GitHub registry.
Which
As well as the
essentially
Docker
means
one.
the Docker lifecycle operations, such as Docker push, Docker pull. Those things are going to work as it is. Just
those would still, like, it's not replacing. Those will still all work, but it's basically, I think you could set, you could point to a different registry to get those when you're doing a Docker pull, for example.
Yeah. Got
Can
it.
you promote Miles, please?
Yep. Okay. So I think the concern, back to the concern was around, if we put them there, much like the official Docker images, people will consider them to be something that's expected. And if they, for example, if they went away, will we get, complaints to the project or something like that? And I guess I don't hear any concerns here. One answer could be, the TSC members don't have any specific concerns as long as the Docker team believes it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, what can we do to help? They're way more in touch with,
I'm happy with that answer. If everybody else is, we can, I can chime in at the end and say that was a discussion that we had.
So answering the question, what we can do to help is approve the token creation request on admin that I just created.
Heading over there now to rubber stamp it.
Will do. Okay, so I'll take the action to add that comment to the issue. If everybody can go over and approve that request. And let me just take a few notes to that effect. And Mary, can you paste a link to that request into the chat so I can add it to the minutes? Thank you very, oh, Rich just did. Thank you very much.
Sorry, yes.
Okay, so next on the agenda is audit Google Access 389. This has sort of been a long time thing. I decided to just go ahead. We'd set up a process where we were going to get some help to do the audit. I decided to finally just do it. So I've gone through, I sent a list to Tierney in terms of who I would drop out, and, you know, subject to feedback from him, I'll just do that and close it out. It was sent to Tierney. Okay, so the next one is 654. This is potential stagnation of open issues on H1 bounty program. We'd previously decided to stop taking, you know, accepting new reports. There generally is consensus to wind down the program. And the current state is we're talking to some of the potential, you know, the alternatives like SNCC and NPM to gauge interest in helping to deal with the backlog. And sort of once we figure that out, you know, we'll need to talk to the foundation in terms of, you know, some messaging and so forth. So that's where that stands. The group's taking reports. Any questions, other discussion on that one before we move on? If not, let's take just a few minutes to look at the strategic initiatives, because that's the end of the agenda. We'll make sure we keep, say, 20 minutes for the private section, but I think that still leaves us about 10 minutes for a quick look at the strategic initiatives. So let's see here. Mateo had to head off, so we'll look at that. We don't have James. Build resources, I don't have any update on. And Mary, I don't know if you have anything to update on the future of the build chain.
No updates.
Okay, so I don't think we have any updates on the strategic initiatives. So are there any other topics that people think we should talk about before we close out the public session? Okay, so well, thanks for everybody for taking the time to attend, and for those who've been watching on the stream.